Welcome to our lovely future humans and those who are curious about why, when you are a master at emotional regulation skills and being yourself, emotions work for you. So number one, if you're anywhere near attachment trauma educated, you're going to know about your nervous system. So that's one. And number two, inspiring human potential is all about this self-led person who knows how to use mindset and lifestyle practices to bring forth more of your emotional regulation skills. Why? Because I get to be myself, you get to be yourself. So I delight in Maria, the magic that I am, and I'm empowered. So we're going to talk about how emotions, they don't get in the way of any of those who are masters at being their self, with the anger, the fear, the sadness, because we are in the VBS, your ventral vagal state. So you know how to use your social engagement system. And that means you also spot when the people who don't know how to get into it are speaking. So 3D 4D collective is what I call them. And you can get used to my language at IHP. I'm a mystic, mentor, content creator, podcast host. And I'm attachment trauma educated. So yesterday in a 3-minute short, I shared with you a little bit about why Maria can spotlight higher self mindset, lifestyle, points of views and practices, and that is where we're going to hone in again on emotional regulation skills. So your ability to manage your own system creates eustress. That's the word that means good stress, energy and motion, because my body, my neuroception, my habitual brain is consistently okay with Maria being herself. So the default mode network is downregulated. I'm using left and right, and I call it the 5D body type. The fifth dimension, it's Christ consciousness, oneness consciousness, but you can equate it to what Pat Ogden defines as secure attachment, non-traumatized people. So we are able to self-regulate without you. While those who don't know how to self-regulate yet, they can use a therapist to reparent themselves and then become delighted with their own magic and then come here and become empowered. So we're not irritated to the extent of being people who find it plausible for me to say, you're a moron for real. I will know that I'm pissed in my pants, and then I will be able to not vent because you're using your prefrontal cortex, but share an experience. And this is the part of where when people don't own their sense of self and they don't own the body in the ventral vagal state, they don't know how to do this. Okay, so the best I can do is give you descriptions, because I've met a bunch of people who talk to me about attachment trauma. They talk to me about their intuitiveness, and they're talking to me about everything of the magical plane of spiritual, but they're not doing nor spiritual growth nor personal growth because they have yet to own their 0-1-year-old, and I can tell. And they don't own their 3 to 7-year-old, and I can tell. I can tell because they talk about energy vampires, they talk about dark auras, and they talk about human suffering. Like a Zen master talks about it as laundry, his sadness. Okay, so when you don't own sadness, big girls, they do cry. When you don't own your prefrontal, that's why Robert Sapolsky with his book Determined thinks we have no free will. I haven't read it yet, but I beg to differ, because I have the free will to share with you how amazing it is to be myself, and you can be you, but it's only when you have owned the sense of self. And with Dr. Daniel Siegel's words, as he points out, attachment is the foundation of how the brain develops, how identity forms, and how resilience takes shape across the lifespan. And once you own your personality, the patterns, the temperament, the securely attached person like me, and you're whole, you are self-sovereign, you're self-led, okay? And so when others get triggered into their mobilization or defenses and shutting down, as Stephen Porges points out, we know that they're going to make up some story. They develop elaborate narratives to make sense of what their body's doing. And as Pat Ogden points out, non-metabolized trauma comes up for all those who stay there. 0-8-year-old is the level of emotional maturity, but those first 3 years are implicit memory. And again, how early relationships wire your nervous system for connection. That's where Stephen Porges once more shares with us, when people are trauma victims, what we're dealing with, besides their stories that are not something we are going to say, bad story. It's just going to be like, hey, flat earthers, what's up? So you leave alone people who don't want to become masters at their emotional regulation, which involves mental. So they don't own their system. They don't own their sense of self. They don't own all of that child parts, okay? And whether you're mystic, spiritual, or simply doing the personal, woo-woo, pseudoscience is great and dandy, what I'm here to say is that we enjoy to be with all. Yesterday we talked about angels, they're amongst us. And as a child of God, for me, God is discerning, equanimous love. In fact, I'm going to give you something else before we end the episode. But let me continue to read for a second. Okay, so how disruptions in the bonds, the relational bonds, ripples out into trauma and anxiety, depression, and relational struggles. And so those who have a nervous system that is in a neuroceptive state that has great advantages in detecting predators will be totally compromised in being social. And Dr. Daniel Fox confirms that too. So somebody seeing a kind person will doubt the kind person and will think of neutrality as something in the works behind the scenes. And as I am a mystic, there are plenty of people who will make up shit in their head. I bet you they put a spell on me. I bet you they're doing some of that magic stuff, okay? So this is where I laugh about it, by the way, because God is perfect in every way, shape, and form, and so is Akash. And it's a perfection of love. When you are in the enlightenment soul age group, and you do know how spiritual masters, prophets, yogis, the experts, we all use all of the words we want. We're not going to be picky with the words, because that's exactly why the enlightenment soul age group is a very specific group of people. Again, they don't all have the spiritual journey. Some have the sciences journey, but we come together and know, hey, 97% of what is out there is unavailable for people to look at, scientists particularly, but we're all together, mystics and sciences, the ones who are, again, 5D collective. So the ones who delight in themselves, delight in the magic of you being you, and then empowered. And as I was saying, when you understand that attachment experiences shape the mind and the nervous system, that disorganized attachment, for example, is a biological paradox, not a pathology for the smart human beings, and that, for example, the avoidant attachment category means they're cut off from the body, the emotional body, and need to regain that. The ambivalent, it's more revved up. Okay, so you understand how those who don't have secure attachment category, they want to go get that stuff worked on first, then they unlearn the unhealthy self-soothing mechanisms and they unlearn everything else, but really what they do is start to identify their triggers, and then because they have an integrated brain healthy relationship, like with us, the functional child adults, that's the IHP community, now that we have relational integration supports resilience at every stage of life. So first the person goes and takes care of themselves, or they are securely attached and non-traumatized. Now we get to build strong bonds, and that's because we get to differentiate. And that's also because we recognize petty behavior for what it is. People who are in a survival mode. Okay, and so with that, the science of attachment is meant to be taught, nuanced, clinical, and deeply human. Thank you, Dr. Daniel Siegel. So he was also sharing how you don't reduce to a little label, which is what teenagers, I call teenagers the adaptive child part. They just use, here's what I am, here's what I am. It's like, okay, what are you doing now? You're not doing anything more. And some people, though, they want that because facades, is what I call the pretenders, tend to, like flat earthers, be motivated by just having a label. Now that they have all the same criteria, they belong. So spotting who you are begins with you being securely attached, non-traumatized, because you can self-regulate. With my 0-1-year-old, if I cry, I can self-regulate. So this is the part of why you are going to not be overwhelmed by the tasks that society gives you, because you're not performing, you're not a circus monkey, and you're not using the left mode alone. You're using a left and right. And so my habitual brain doesn't actually get upset at Maria being bad or being good, because those words don't mean anything the minute that you're a grown human being who knows that life isn't good or bad, and the whole good and evil, those who want the story, they don't know that God's perfect, that Akash is love, and that it's one and in the same. So the frequency, yes, let me describe to you, because this was one of the things that I really wanted to share with you, alongside, again, how when you are that which is yourself, emotions work for you, and that when you are master at emotional regulation skills, you continue to master mental, emotion, physical plane. I'm an Akashic Records reader. I'm an intuitive, a channeler, a downloader. And that's why I bring the spiritual and personal growth. So you can call me woo, pseudoscience, but I come with God, with Jesus, with Holy Spirit, and then I expand to more. And the ones who don't like me and call me names, as well as all of our other brothers and sisters, and want to keep talking about Luciferian era, that's the 4D collective. And then nobody's going to do anything about an ignorant human being who doesn't go get their body tended to and do a 20-year journey with a good therapist, or however long it takes for them to unlearn all of that family in the head talk inner critic, outer critic, and projection, and then drinking, drugging, fucking, double standards, and a bunch more of hypocrisy. And the biggest situation I have with it is that their body is in distress. As Dr. Amy Apigan points out, it is neuroception, and people don't choose it, but they can choose to get themselves to a therapist so that they can learn how to take care of themselves. So I don't actually do anything with people who ignore that which is data, because again, you don't, like Bezo van der Kolk points out, convince a friend who wants to marry the wrong person that it's bad for them. And you don't talk anybody out of their emotional state. And that's because, as Stephen Porges also points out, biologically people, they don't have room for anything else. And they don't notice that they are actually double standard hypocrites like my facade friend, because those are all the insecurities that stem from a non-bilaterally integrated brain person who's talking over me, by the way. So when I have people talking over me, I don't mind, and that's me, Maria. Neuroception explained, how your nervous system decides what's safe and why it matters for healing. The Biology of Trauma podcast. And as she points out, neuroception is what determines our response to everything in any moment of our life. It is not based on reality, it is based on one's perception. It is not willpower or motivation, it is the body's security system. The ones who consistently have it asking, am I safe or am I in danger now? So for her, resilience is bad in one of her videos because she's talking to people who are using their survival mode. I'm talking to people who are using their social engagement, ventral vagal mode. So resilience is good, and we're using the bright sides of neuroplasticity. That's why we do use stress and not distress. And that's the part of where you don't prove it to other people. You own the sense of self, you know how to be aware and then accountable, and you regulate, which means I don't feel overwhelmed. So for example, the only thing that overwhelms me, and it doesn't as much as it used to, are the panic attacks. Other than that, I'm pretty good at being able to be around any of that, which is a person. Because Terry Real can do it, Dr. Daniel Siegel can do it, so human beings are doing it every day. The ones who are following the copycats, it's something for another day, as I make rhymes, not on purpose. Okay, so the timbre of the voice of not spoken words, but I'm going to give you the left mode and the right mode, and when they work together, and then the body, okay, and you own the sense of self, so Maria doesn't get lost. Even if Maria gets sad, it's more of a, I'm so sad, so you get to process sadness, anger, you get to process the charges, you get to process changes. I'm already preparing for a change that's going to come in about like 5 years. And I actually already cried about it. And see, this is the part so you're very okay with being vulnerable, and you're also okay, I'm going to get decrepit and old, you know, this is all stuff that to me isn't like, oh my God. I actually find it quite first world problems, which is why I am a blessed person. I have a very lucky life. Okay, so as an Akashic record reader, by the way, when you read for 5D, it's very satisfying. When you read for 4D, 3D, not so much, but you don't deny them the counsel and the guidance, because that's not my place. So you remember that every person does the best they can, because the reality is, if you are a person who doesn't take yourself to a therapist to get delightful within you, I can't make you. I can't talk sense to double standard person who doesn't know what true love is. So true love is, death do part, sickness and health, for better for worse. Commitment. Being flexible means that I can delight in our differences, and then I can also know that you will not be me and I will not be you. I'll know if you're a hypocrite the minute that you begin to treat yourself like shit, because that's what a hypocrite is to Maria. The person who's in survival mode, who is performing because your every day is hard work. While it doesn't have to be hard work, it's that I have life, it's meaningful to me, and as Dr. Daniel Siegel points out, every time we get up, we're going to have energy and motion. But it's use stress for those of us who own the sense of self. So I delight in waking up in the morning, and it's called, I have an integrated brain. Kindness consistently grows, mystic, spiritual or not, doesn't matter. And that's the thing that I'm getting to live, and that's the restorative embodiment. Okay, so the people who are not doing it, they're just using their mouths. I've seen them in my courses. It's not funny. I don't like when people waste my time, because that's the part of where my time is precious, and that is where people say you're selfish, and I'll say yes, but I paid money for classes, and I paid to learn from smart people, not from the ones who are not. smart and who continue to interrupt us for a shortcut. That means you're trying to sell a product, so you don't care about a person's mental health. You just want to make the next $1,000,000 and become famous. And there will be people who will buy your actual shortcut because people don't want to do the work. The hypocrites, the emotionally immature people who don't go to Patrick Chahan to get their reparenting online, who don't go to Dr. Amy Pigan, who don't go to spend time as long as it takes to get a therapist to help them, but they do go and learn about becoming more of an intuitive. Oh yeah, the 4D, they're bountiful. They've been around for a while. So you know what 4D does? You know my intuition is always spot on, so I know I'm right. That's an adaptive child part. The whole, I know I'm right, you're not right, you're not wrong, you have a subjective opinion, you tapping into the sphere of consciousness doesn't make you right or wrong. Also, Akash is love, not fear, not negative. And if you're perceiving frequencies and you're still so up and downy and everywhere, you don't know how to manage your own system. And that's because stress, as Sadhguru points out, is not natural, but he doesn't know the words of good stress. So the sciences, like Dr. Daniel Siegel explains how our chemistry works and why eustress is different than distress, which is why, again, Dr. Amy Pigan, when she says resilience is bad, she's talking about it for people who are performing. I'm saying resilience is good because we're not performing once we're in a restorative embodiment. We are ourselves all the time, and so your emotional regulation skills are actually happening because you're using two sides of the brain. But when someone doesn't even own their sense of self, they look at you with a blank stare because they don't know how it is to always know, get out of my space. And you know what? Let me learn how to not do that. Let me just learn to focus and breathe. So there's many different ways you will continue to master mental, emotion, physical mastery. For those of you who are mystic spiritual, our light body continues to expand. It's amazing and we're very fun. Okay, so with that being said, as we close on out this episode, so left is like a little sword, okay, ego, and right is going to be more like the wind for now. I'm going to think of how to continue to describe it. And the timber, which is where if you listen to Stephen Porges when he talks to us about the social engagement features, it's prosody, facial expression, expressivity, face gestures within a quiet, safe environment. Okay, so I can tell when my thoughts begin to get spiky, and that's not good or bad. I don't have inner critic, I have inner growth. Those who have inner critic, outer critic, they might, again, want to go and head on over to Dr. Daniel Fox, Dr. Daniel Siegel, whoever it is, and stay there. Once they're done, they say, I want to do personal growth. Yay! Not, I went dead. Equanimity is not nice. I don't have fun. It's better to say, I want to stay in my modulated embodiment. And then to understand that's distress. So stay in your survival mode. Continue using your stories about good and bad, in and out, and live your life. That's 3D, 4D. That's what they're going to keep doing because they don't actually want to do the work. Because the work requires them to go, and this is not funny, as Patrick Chan points out. First, the fetal position. Then you're going to figure out I wasted half my life away. I did a bunch of shit that I'm ashamed of that I didn't want to do. And there's rage. There's rage because you will completely, so I don't have any rage because I speak up when I don't like something. But I got the lovingly accepted environment. All my emotions got to be expressed, and I don't have to work one day for love. So I don't perform. This is not a circus act. I'm going to be imperfect. I'm going to be flawed. Some people won't like me. Okay. I don't feel anything here like, oh my gosh. I delight in myself with those flaws. And I can cry when we're not a match and get over it because I breathe and I drink and I eat. So the left mode doesn't work against the right mode when you have a habitual brain that says, yeah, I have emotions, I have thoughts, I'm Maria. And that's how you work with your whole self. Okay. So since I was a kid, I don't change. I'm just more of Maria. And when it comes to channeling and downloading and intuitiveness, we all have different journeys. So I never had anything being cut off from Purusha Prakriti, from pure consciousness, pure energy. I haven't been cut off from Akash. I have never been cut off from God. I've never been cut off from my higher self. So consistently I downloaded even before I even knew the word. And when I got clairs, I just knew that they're not going to be welcomed by some of the cloak people and the ones who think that clairs are different than spiritual gifts. And that Reiki is different than just Holy Spirit or energy or whatever, and that they just don't know how to use all words and bring it all in the pile. And they don't have to, but that's where we're at. It's all in the pile because it's not dismissing books. It's saying we have all the books and we're empowered and we're having fun, and that's why our 5D collective of spiritual and personal growth people will have fun at our workshops, retreats, because woo-woo pseudoscience is not offensive to anyone who knows, yeah, for some people they don't have faith. It's okay. They don't have to. God is perfect in the way he is. He'll speak the language of anyone so that he can be welcomed. So that's why I like that man, what's his name? Thomas Campbell. He's the physicist of everything, the law of everything. And he explains while he's being interviewed how, everyone has a brain, which, duh. And we're going to want to make sense of stuff. So that makes sense to a person who knows, yeah, I have a way my brain can hear when I'm learning. And then I'm going to continue learning. And what I discern is when I'm meeting somebody who thinks they know everything, and now I know I got a teenager in the room. Because I got a person who needs to prove themselves, and I didn't ask you to prove yourself. I'm not testing you, but you think you are being tested consistently, which tells me you don't know how to delight in yourself yet, which means I got a facade, which means I'm going to let you talk so that I can allow myself to leave the 3-year-old the space to be heard because you didn't get heard, and then that's it. I don't have to take on any of your 0-8-year-old stuff. Double standard people. So they don't actually realize their self-righteous energy served their own child. I don't need to put up with it because I'm not your mother, father, sister, brother, ex, whatever it is that happened in your life. I ain't it. And your trauma charge doesn't need to be used in a conversation with me, but you're disregarding the fact that you're in a, excuse me, some random dude comes up and says, you're confusing science and spirituality as I'm talking a serious conversation. Say, no, I'm not. And I had fun with it because I'm not upset at people interrupting me because I don't have an ego that needs to prove shit. Maria's just talking. My sword is a good sword. It doesn't cut up anything. And when it gets spiky, the reality is there's only one and actually 2 people that I'm still reactive. And that's because I was a 3-year-old and I said, you can't spank me. It's on my body. And I am very pushy kind of person. So that's the other part. We're all motivated differently. When you learn from smart scientists with siblings and parents, we have ways that we interact with each other. And that's why it's fun to continue personal growth with your loved ones, because that's exactly what we do, is we delight in our differences, and then we get to accept that we're different, and that's called differentiated selves. And that's pausing it for another time. So physicist Thomas Campbell, the truth is not fragile. It will always float to the top. And then he says, but sometimes it takes time to get past beliefs, and it takes a huge paradigm shift to get there. But I'm going to say it's not a huge paradigm shift. Just depends who you're talking to. So if you meet those who are enlightening, they're not going to need a huge paradigm shift. They just understand, one, those who are emotionally regulating are empowered, and those who are not have stories. Mystic, spiritual, some will come all together and some won't. And so God, perfect, Akash, love, source, anima mundi, you name it. And when we see what's going on, yes, the suffering stuff, we can, in the absence of sitting underneath a tree, understand the Buddhist psychology, the Buddhist philosophy, and all of that, and then remember Jesus, and then remember also to stay grounded in reality, as Sam Harris points out, which is where any of our cherishable beliefs, we can put them to the side. Meantime, the world works with a specific number of entities and people, and so if you're true leadership material in your brain, that means you're discerning, equanimous, loving, and you see the bigger picture. So you know that you don't lift one finger by yourself, and there's 8 billion people, and that God works in mysterious ways, and that all of our brothers and sisters are angels, because we're all the children that he made, and that we get the free will choice. So my left mode and my right mode. I get to, Maria, tell you how I'm safe. Oh, dark matter, dark energy, don't implode. Sure, someone can lie to me, change their mind on me. Okay, is that a big deal? I didn't realize that individuals would be that big of a deal to. Okay, so when people, your social time is a bonus, it's not because you don't want people. People are amazing. Yeah, every day I share my life with the people I chose. I got 24 hours and I do the things I like to do. This is what confidence, without the I'm performing a task. You enjoy waking up. It's an integrated brain. And with God, knowing that he's perfect in every way, shape, or form, with Akash, knowing that it's going to consistently try to help every person to be redirected to get that kingdom of God, the seed of enlightenment within you. Kingdom of God, Jesus, seed of enlightenment, Sadhguru. So yes, you can bring forth. Guess what it is? It's your own heart. Delight in yourself. But delighting in yourself means you're 1-year-old too. And if you're 0-1 attached panic ain't yours, I'm going to know it, because you're not going to know how to do anything by yourself without wanting me to give you some type of approval, which I don't want to give you. Because I'm not God, and you're not it either. So how about you accept yourself, like Terrio points out, and know that someone can say you're an evil bitch, evil witch, and I think you're awful. And then to be able and actually cry it over, get over it, and maybe sometimes not even cry over it because of the hypocrisy of people. So it depends. But I have one person that came to my mind as they're doing what they're doing. I'm like, wow, that's one hell of a hypocrite. But, I do realize that 5D and 3D and 4D don't always match in their ideas, because I have morality and integrity. That means I don't have double standards, and that means that it's not about perfection. It's that I'll be able to own up to it, talk to you, look at you with respect, and actually own the fact that I'm not an entitled anything, because that's why I got a left and a right, and I own the sense of self, and I'm not enmeshing, and I'm not upset, and I don't need this. I ain't looking for your thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm a securely attached, non-traumatized, self-regulating person. So this is inside here with the capacity to be sad or mad or afraid. And in fact, fear is probably the number one thing that would have me running the fuck away. But sadness, it's a big girls, they do cry. Yes, they do. And anger, I'm still working on getting it in check when it comes to my lovely mother and twin, because they're the only ones that I can be snap and done, and I know why. I'm Maria, leave me alone. I want my space. So, in the womb, I think that's where it began, because, we were in one sac, we're monozygote, whatever the word is in English. I'm bilingual, and so I came out with the umbilical cord, and we always tease that maybe she tried to choke me because I'm a big talker. I'm just saying. So, it is what it is, but you get to have fun with it like Ice Age. Okay, so left mode, like a little sword. When it's a inner growth mindset, it stays that way. When it's an inner critic, you don't want that, and outer critic, you don't want that. Okay, so that's for the therapist to handle. Then you do I'm doing spiritual and personal growth. That's where Maria's at. Okay, so your left is like a little sword. The timber stays soft. When it gets a little spiky, you recognize it, and you don't endorse it. You got your right, and you say, okay, so my emotions just came up because this is a little spiky. What's going on? What's the deal? What are you upset about? And then you have a nice inner growth conversation with yourself. And you also have people that you talk to. So this is mastery in time, over time. I mastered myself over time because I wanted to. Because why would I ever bring forth not my best self? It's not an image. I can emotionally regulate all of that, which is anger, sadness, fear. Why would I not? Surprise, happiness, disgust. Wellness industry, the ones who say we're positive vibes only, they don't know what positive means. It means, AKA, ventral energy. Yeah, I'm positive vibes only. Sure, whatever. No, I know how to use my prefrontal cortex. And then when I'm looking in the face of people who want to tell me about suffering, I leave it alone, because they're the same hypocrites that have disregarded the fact that we're a big ball, the globe, and that your nervous system speaks miles away, and that I get to perceive it. But, I'm sorry, you don't believe in it. So the people who don't know Tara Brach, there's this amazing summit that I got to attend, and this was shortly after COVID, and I remember learning about our nervous system and also perceiving our entire globe and the fear and a lot more, and these are things that a 5D mystic won't ever try to prove, because you don't prove it. But I knew our timeline when I began ascending with Claire's, and that was like 2007 with Twin Flame 1. 2005 is when things began to move into the direction, but 2007. And then I got to Twin Flame 3, and by that time I was mastering my emotional, was finishing up, and I was mastering my physical, and now I'm continuing. So you master those planes, which AKA means you just use your human name, body connection, so that I can make it make sense. Okay, your body is in its ventral vagal state. You have thoughts and feelings come up, and you're staying equanimous and calm about it, even when you're all irritated about it. Okay, so it's not you pretending, is your capacity to be open-hearted, to delight, again, and not to be in a temporal junction. Emotions last 90 seconds. In the physical brain, you still have them, but they only last 90 seconds if you're mastering how to work with the charge. So if I get in a moment where I'm really scared, that happened recently, because the day was full of earthquakes where I live, and so, there's people around, there's my body's perceiving it, I'm on edge because we don't know if we have to start running away. By the end of the evening, finally the day was over. I wanted a good cry, but I wasn't able to give a good cry, but I knew what the cry was all about, and we release charges through urine, sweat, and tears. So the charges that are trauma charges, which just means that your body is. So right here, was it distress? I don't think so, because I work well with my body. But I'm not technical to that extent. You know, I don't have a machine hooked up on me, so I just use words to try and explain to you stuff. But as Tara Brach points out at the summit, after the pandemic, our nervous systems were affected, and we vibe consciousness. Okay, so I know what she's talking about, because if I'm near a person who has their sympathetic revved up, I'm reminded of my panic attacks. And I learned how to differentiate more because Dr. Daniel Siegel gave me those suggestions, which was really helpful as he gave me the suggestions. Okay, so your left mode is stay soft, your right mode works with your left, and then you're able to notice whichever of those emotions comes up. It's not a big deal. So with anger, you have a healthy way to work with it, not venting. Because again, venting, talk to you about this one, doesn't actually allow you to process anything. But sadness, you want to have a cry, because if you don't have the cry, you don't release it. But if you don't release it, you want to do some activity that can help you to release it. So like the day after, I slept, I did all the good stuff, and there you go. Okay, and so you'll feel it. You'll feel that you've released it. For fear, that actually easily moves out of your system. Sadness can move easily out of your system too. It just depends if you're going to want to think about it while you're sad and crying or something, which is where it's best to just know that sometimes it's just a release. So you have a body that is in connection. This is very important because there are people who think their bodies are in connection, but you can tell they're not. And I'm going to pause so that I can finish up, and then we'll continue in some other episode. Okay, so the thoughts, again, they're not harsh. They're soft, and if they get prickly, you immediately are aware, okay, I got some charges going on, and that is where we begin. So once you're a higher self, like the sciences people, mental health professionals that know about the body and connection, you'll know how to consistently have equanimity. Why would you not? You will want to be in that which is eustress, because your body is automatically smarter than the left mode is. And that's why the empowered feminine has an empowered masculine. And that's why divine masculine, divine feminine, those words are bullshit for the 4D collective that decided to disrespect the entirety, by the way, of the relationship of an oversoul. But that's because they need a story for themselves, because they are still in bodies in protection. They don't own their 1-year-old. They don't own their 3-year-old. They don't own the 8th and 9th chakras of theirs, and they don't own the human secondary consciousness. So the fact that it's a condition, you and I have no meaning necessarily to you or I. In this globe, I'm 1 out of 8 billion. If I die today, the only people who will miss me will be the followers, maybe. We don't even know. And for sure, my family actually know. I think so. So when you can be okay with that and be like, yeah, so what? You wanted me. You think that meaning is what I'm doing. This is why it's about feelings and not words. The words that come out of the mouths of people disregard the fact that Maria is for me, my loved ones are my most meaningful. I have them all. I'm the luckiest person alive. That makes my life easy. Yes, it does. In fact, that's exactly why God is perfect. And so when I think of people wanting to judge human beings, I consistently have to hold my tongue, because this is the moment of truth. Those people think they're entitled, and then they don't have a relationship with God, and they keep forgetting He's perfect and He knows exactly what's going on. And then a lot more, I'm going to pause this, which is where as a channeler, downloader, and an enlightenment soul agent who comes with God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, no one is God. No one is it. And Akash and Source transform the entire conversation to when someone's going to say their divinity, and then they're going to say things that are ridiculous, because you notice how they're hypocrites. Divinity, our ability to transcend perceived limitations. The minute you have decided that one group is better than another group, you just created a limitation. And the minute that you're going to continue to push that dogma and that story, I don't have someone who can transcend their own presented limitations. I have somebody who's now going to create an island with Peter Pan, the Lost Boys, and continue to be with Wendy. And then they're going to continue to interpret all of that which is happening outside of them with this. Because there's one group and another group. This is how easy it is for anyone who owns their emotional regulation skills to notice when somebody's got a good and a bad and they're wanting to fight it out. Okay, so now let's continue using words, manipulating it. So there's your little boxes of people that decided that this is okay and this is not okay. And there's your not divinity. Because the minute you think divinity is what you are, by the way, ego's in town. And you ain't God, and you ain't it. And if you were in any way, shape, or form surrounded by it, that's exactly why you would notice when things get prickly, because that's the minute of you're not going to go in the low frequency. You're going to say, hey, what's the charge about? Hey, what's up, 3-year-old? What's the feels about? Oh, I'm irritated. Why? Well, because they're not the way I expect them to be. Life isn't the way I wanted it to be this way. And it's going that way. And here's where our lovely Sadhguru with his wisdom. Let me read to you another one of his amazing quotes. As he points out, there are those who will get things done, and then there are those who will be upset at when they, right here. There are two kinds of people, those who make things happen and those who enjoy it when it happens well, and they complain when it does not, which is where the twin flame thing, when people began to switch it up, the stories on themselves versus, well, again, let me leave it alone. So, right mode, left mode work together. When you get irritated, they're your feels. Charges are not good or bad. And the people who don't know how to do this consistently disregard that they don't like equanimity, which is their health. Common centeredness. They don't like it because their body is still performing a circus act, because the minute someone's insecure and you don't own that 0-1-year-old, you don't own darkness. Hello, darkness, my old friend, because implicit memory. And the womb. Don't forget about the womb. Okay, so when you do own this, which is yours, and you own this, and then you know you have no meaning, it's not desperation, it's not because I'm being negative. This is the part, again, words don't do much for a person who knows this. My body feels good with me knowing what is of value to me. I'm breathing, I'm drinking, I have food, I have my loved ones, I have work, I have health, I have everything I need. First world problems, anyone? That's the minute of truth. You're not suffering life when you can wake up more energized. That is another indication. So people who don't wake up energized, don't notice their thoughts are actually little sword fights. As they continue to grow older, like Patrick Chan points out, hurt people don't need to hurt people. There's plenty of therapists around giving them very many signs. Don't label yourself. You go and get yourself help. Or, I'm an avoidant, and since you're picking on us, I decided to make a channel. And you know what? I stopped going to therapy because they said I'm doing a good job. And all they want me to do is do journaling and mindfulness and meditation. And why do I want to do that? People are fucked up anyways. And you see something like that and you think, wow, what a cute group they are. Anybody else want to join the ones who decide to stay suffering inside? Because I really find that unimpressive. I find it unimpressive to meet coward after coward after coward, which is where God chimes in. Don't judge your brothers and sisters of human suffering. A waste of your fucking time. And Buddha. And I say, haha, what? They're not using the ventral vagal portfolio toning of exercises. Now they're spreading rumors that yoga brings demons out of you because they don't notice that they don't even know how to do integration, because the mindfulness meditation isn't going to work if they don't take ownership of that 0-1-year-old with a person who is a good therapist, obviously, and does EMDR, chop arts work, and somatics. So when you hear people spreading rumors about yoga and the spiritual stuff and the mystic stuff, or people who have bad experiences with therapists, yes, there's therapists who need to be spotlighted, like mystics and spiritual ones, and not with labels, but with conversations. That is, we have one of two groups of people. Either they are emotionally regulating, and that means they know how to use their brain, or they're not yet, and they think they know how to use their brain, but we'll spot it because the way they'll speak will be in and out group. And the more that they highlight this in and out group, the more you know, oh, wow, there's another ostrich with their head in the sand, and there's another one, and another one, and another one, and another, and that's exactly why it's completely visible to enlightened ones what those who are not enlightening are. And we don't go and say they're right or wrong because they're the ones who don't understand how to be grounded in reality, not the other way around. So grounded in reality means you know your brain don't fall out of your asshole, and that if someone's getting irritated because you can navigate a number of different subject matters, that they're the ones who don't understand how they're trying to prove something, but there's no need for them to get all agitated. That nobody is an authority on one subject matter. And the best case scenario, you get the you're stupid deal, and there you go. Or you get, some other type of way that they come at it, but it's not a big deal to the ones of us who are just having a good time talking. And so you don't get destabilized, because there's no need for me to be destabilized by a human being who thinks they know everything, particularly because their 3-year-old just made themselves aware, and I know all about it because mine does the same with my mother and my twins. So, there's that. So you're able to be aware, accountable, regulate, and then to know not to make a big deal when we meet people who don't have it all together, because I don't have it all together. Yeah, still working on, again, my 3-year-old. So with that being said, your left doesn't ever get vicious, and that's because you have the inner growth mindset. Your heart doesn't ever get vicious because everyone deserves to be loved and everyone is an angel, and even the ones who have fallen can get up thanks to good therapists. In the meantime, we have places in this world that are not safe physically, as a lovely human being who participated to one of our lives mentioned, and as we had an exchange, I was like, you know what, I know what you're saying, because all of the people that have learned in classrooms with me with attachment trauma have asked our teachers, our good therapists, how can we help the people? How can we help? And they already say, you being able to be in your ventral vagal state already helps because you're vibing. And again, like Tara Brach says, and like a mystic, spiritual, and somatic empath, empowered person will know, we are mammals. We are not separate from this earth. And the ones who don't understand biology and the cellular vibration, again, they're not going to be here, because I completely understand. I was in high school when we got explained about cells. And that's exactly why your gut and your heart, empowered feminine, don't doubt. We're part of nature, and the earth is fine. She's not going to eat us up alive. She's not pissed at us. And anybody who's saying volcanoes are bringing demons out, I'm like, oh, wow, okay, it makes me think of mythological Greeks. Wow, sure, okay, keep talking. That's your story. That's how you are navigating the frequency still. I know about tectonic plates, and I know about space weather, and I know about, hey, dark matter, dark energy, please don't implode. It doesn't deny spiritual stuff or our stories. It gives us explanations, which allows our stories to not only be put in a place called the library, but for us to say, okay, we don't need to dehumanize and continue to talk about monsters because we're not living in caves anymore. At least some of us aren't. Others who are living in caves, we are trying not to go and impose on others, right? There's parts of the world where I think they try to stay away and leave them alone. I bet you those people would be like, oh my God, I don't know those parts of the world. But I'm saying anyone who knows history, geology, science, will be like, okay, why are they still saying that volcanoes means demons? Why are they saying Mother Earth's going to eat us? Because they're pissed at humanity. That means their faith in humanity is broken, and they're in their little self-righteous butthole, but they're using God, Mother Earth, Source, Akash. They're using stories, and they're creating groups, and they're all, basically staying within their own thought process and their own way of making sense of. I can make sense to myself always, which is why it's a subjective reality. But when you're subjectively objective, you know when you're learning information, which is why you know when you meet true intellectuals versus the pseudo intellectuals. Then you'll know when you meet a true spiritual master, yogi, guru, expert of whatever you want to call it, and when you meet a pretender who is not even a disciple. They are like the disciples from Sadhguru's story, who will want to go to the master and say, you need to kick out the thief because we decided he's not going to get anywhere. And it's like, really? No, you forgive the thief. No, you won't. We're going to leave. You can leave. You forgive the thief. Forgive. Don't want to forgive? There you go. So they're not actually disciples. They're just pretending, which is what all of those who are teenager versions of themselves, the adoptive child part. So when somebody is pretending to be themselves, they don't know how to become their self because they still haven't figured it out. That they're working to get a place at the table, and that they have stinginess because their envy, jealousy, spite begins when they're an infant. So you don't unlearn unhealthy, self-soothing, insecure anything unless you take yourself seriously. And the ones who do, like I pointed out, when they say, I want it now, I just think first world problems. There you go. And when it's a mystic who wants to talk to me about the shit that goes on, God is perfect. Because you know what I know about the world? It's not perfect. Let's make the world a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are children and people dying, and here's where I don't agree with any kind of physical violence whatsoever. But as people have pointed out, Maria, you're utopistic. And I'm like, well, I know that I would not be able to be anywhere near any of that, because I probably would poop my pants and I'd faint, and then I'd probably want to be fainted until I can just wake up and hopefully be somewhere better, because that's how scared I'd be. So I can say that there are people out there in the world that can face things that I don't want to have to face. I'm happy that I'm part of 8 billion people, but I also know that giving certain human beings, what's it called? Yeah, I'm going to leave that one alone. There's only one God and one source, one Akash, and the frequency is All you need is love. Boom, boom, boom. All you need is love, love. So when you have restorative embodiment and you know the gooiness of eustress and you know how to hug yourself when you're crying and when you're mad and when you're afraid, and then you actually don't feel helpless and hopeless, you own your 1-year-old. I know it, yes, and no, not because I had to hit rock bottom and rise from the ashes like a phoenix. I consistently just rise from the ashes because I don't really hit rock bottom because, it's a figure of speech, but also the heart, it's a muscle. And also life doesn't hit you hard. That's really disrespectful. God has not given me ever anything that I could not actually handle. In fact, I consistently say, hey, God, so listen, I know you keep telling me that I need to not judge the humans that are suffering, but I really, so he and I have a very, very good pact forever. And I will tell you this, an empowered feminine will not ever go out of their way and say, we're anointed. We're more special. We feel deeply. And that's because you remember, right? We have God. It means you got lucky. Like, no, I'm just saying, you know what the other side is, right? That they actually have to get out of the ashes and the shithole that's I will let you all know, I'm not laughing because it's funny. An empowered feminine means that you have a body that continues to know I'm part of the earth, so you're not doubting earth. Earth's not going to eat you. And we do know about bears. I choose the man because I want to be able to talk and have a good time. The bear might eat me and I might not outrun the bear. I don't like all men, no, and some are not real men. They just like to use the words. Again, integrity. I know which men have integrity and which women do and which days. And they're all securely attached, non-traumatized, with their empowered brains and emotionally regulating by the minute because they know God is perfect and good and that we do need all sides of a coin. No, it's that, like I was saying, the bigger picture. And, so when people don't have faith and they're afraid, so they feel helpless and hopeless, that's why we are not brought near the people that are not able to comprehend that which is coming forth from our mouths and our embodiment. What I'm trying to say is the 5D mystic, spiritual, mindful, living, loving person will not be anywhere near the 3D, 4D because they will consistently create groups where they feel safe. Because again, as the physicist Thomas Campbell points out, the truth is not fragile. It will always float to the top, but sometimes it takes time to get past beliefs, and it takes a huge paradigm shift to get there. But eventually, it will get there. And when it does, and the scientists say yes, then, it's correct. Once science validates stuff, you will see that people will be able to accept. In fact, it's called universally accepted concepts. So the people who don't like that, we have new words, we have new ways of talking about our emotional bodies and stuff like that. It's okay. The laggards, they're called, they're going to have to accept it because science isn't lying. Also, science proves what Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within us, and Sadhguru, the seed of enlightenment, which is why, again, God is perfect, Source is perfect, and it's all love. That doesn't mean that we're not seeing what we're seeing. No, we are. And the ones who want to give you timelines, again, are the same ones who they only have a left working because the right and the left work very well with the knowingness of what it means for, where is it? The wisdom. The word of wisdom diffuses conflict, provides clarity. Prophecy speaks forth mind, heart of God to encourage, comfort, challenge, or strengthen. And it's outside of time, so it can predict events future with visions or dreams. Divine revelations prophetically reveals hidden things, miracles, supernatural. I have seen our future. I have a future husband. I'm on Earth, and it's before Earth will move on, and I'll save that for another story. I have also seen future as I was being read a biblical text in the church. I was at a church, and I have seen also other things that have taken place recently in my location in astral travel, and so we all tap into a sphere. The ones of us who understand that we don't need to give people stories from yesterday's news is because we don't actually use yesterday's news since we know what year it is. And then we also know about free will. And then we also know that we're living in a time of dharma and not karma. So there's an active collective of people who own their sense of self and who don't get lost in a dress up. So the ones who are dressing up they will bring to you messages in certain ways that gives those who need sense of certainty, that which they're looking for, which is why they are the ones who say divinity. And then they don't transcend their perceived limitations because they continue to give you the story. But people like to be superheroes and have supervillains, and that's because some people are motivated by performance because they don't get to meet their true self. They dishonor themselves. So again, it's not something I'm surprised about. Everyone will create a story that will make sense to their nervous system when it is mobilized and shutting down, and reject that life as we know it. Thank you, Patrick McNamara. Decentralizing in the self. Religious evolution. He explains all about how the embodied brain works when nightmare after nightmare people don't go and get help. And I know all about it because there's plenty of 4D people who don't notice that there's not time jump when you black out. You actively have blacked out because your body doesn't yet know how to navigate the body in its ventral vagal state, but you're disregarding that you are not taking care to get your window tolerance expanded to window welcome, to work to find out how to handle that which is a nervous system. So again, you don't have to live life with clinical dissociation. Bethany, Brandon, Ruthlanius talked to me in my courses, obviously not to me, but they talked to us and taught us all about this. And when they have patients going to them who say, I'm afraid of integration, they say, don't worry, we don't have to go all the way. So I don't know what it's like to clinically dissociate, because even with my panic attacks, I've never clinically dissociated. And I'm pretty sure I won't. I mean, if I ever blacked out, it would be completely not wanted, and I think someone would punch me in the face or I would faint. That would not be fun. So we don't want to think about that, yeah. But I can tell you, Kundalini awakenings are a real deal, and that's the only 2 times that I was like, okay, I don't want to black out, because, blacking out is something you are not going to say yes to if you're grounded in the I want to stay consciously aware of Maria. And the ones who are okay with, again, blacking out, that's a whole other story. So anyways, side note. I mean, these are a bunch of different stories that were not meant to be a part of it, but they are. And with that being said, again, the whole goal of trauma treatment is to help people feel safe in their bodies. Thank you, Ruthlanius. Once you are safe in your body, that's why selflessness, timelessness, effortless, and richness means our flow state. We deal with it, the flow state, going with the flow, with our own hearts, and that's with dealing with unknowns, uncertainties, unexpecteds, unwanteds, the 3 main modules of the Inner Growth Mindset program. There's 3 courses, 3 levels. The beginners is on Udemy, the intermediate and advanced not yet, and the main modules are for free on the inspiringhumanpotential.com website. For paid content, we work with emotions, we work with a lot of things. Right now I'm focusing on anger, and I'm also continuing to add exercises, readings, and spotlights, but I want to get our patron membership piece of content done for the 8th and 9th chakra. So 5-dimension people, they're not special, but we have the body in connection. We have an integrated brain, and so that sword doesn't ever become a weapon that you use to hurt anybody's feelings, and we don't manipulate in a way to try and convince anyone of anything. We actually will always speak out our truth, our thoughts, and then we will respect, accept, and love all equally. And again, that's why God is perfect. So God's kept me exactly where I need to be every step of the way of my journey, and I've always known that. What I was trying to say is that empowered feminine will never think I got the short end of the stick. Never, I said, but I'm only 45, so remember. However, I've lived many, many lifetimes. But what I'm trying to get to is a spiritual master, a mystic, a guru, a enlightened one, anyone who wants to speak to you the word of God in this way of them. They will know the frequency of equanimity and love. If they don't, they are people who are using alert, their bodies in protection, and their frontal lobes are flopped down, and they're using therefore their amygdala, and they are using brain that feels afraid of the world and judges the world, and they got trauma charges that they don't want to dissolve, and they're going to project their inner childhood stuff, 0-8-year-old, and all the ancient books, and then they're going to say divinity transcends limitations, but they're not going to notice that they're not transcending anything anymore, because now they have a model and a story and a group that follows them like the sheep do, and they're completely one group against another group. So when you see the 2 groups, you're just going to say, oh, look, there's another 2 flat earthers, round earthers. Then we got those people. Oh, look, hey, they're having a good time being on those other ends of the spectrums. What are we doing? Well, we're here. Where's the golden nuggets? So the ones who are able to see the bigger picture, they understand that everyone has a place in the kingdom of God. But within yourself, you don't have the kingdom of God if you don't know how to delight in yourself. And to do that, I can't make the choice for you. As Jesus points out, you can forgive, turn the other cheek. Blessed are those who believe without seeing. You can not cast a stone, because every one of us has sinned before and been imperfect, and we continue to be that. So the part about being a perfect, imperfect human being here, when you're emotion regulating and you have no lack of self-confidence, is that. No lack of self-confidence, and anybody who has even a remotely little speck of it will be flared up. If they welcome themselves and they want to delight, that's awesome. They're going to enjoy 5D collective like the back of their hand. And that doesn't mean that they're going to become 5D collective, because the minute that they disregard that their 0-1-year-old is not theirs, or their 3 to 7, you can't make them understand that emotionally immature people, they get irritated, they justify their irritation, and then they close themselves off. And so again, it's very simple when you don't know that your personality patterns, your temperament, your attachment is yours, and that you work with it. So we're mindfulness, wellness industry, wellness professionals, whatever words you want to use, but when we're channeling and downloading, there's a difference. We don't have to go offline. We also don't need to give you specific times, and we don't use yesterday's news. We can have the gist of it. Everyone is different, but at the end of the day, the future is unknown in the very specifics and details, and anybody who wants certainty is someone who's afraid and who, again, doesn't need us. They can understand that it's okay. We're all afraid of dark matter, dark energy, and that our lovely countries don't get along. And so let's do something about it, as we all are doing. So that's why even the groups that are in their 3D, 4D, a little limited, they're doing something. They're giving each other a place, like the Flat Earthers, where they can pat each other on the back and continue living till tomorrow. Water, air, water, food. Let's tend to the basic necessities. Bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your life, and or whatever the words are. But that's why use stress is a way fun, because we don't get distressed, but we still get stressed. That's because, again, the body, energy, and motion. So while Sadhguru is awesome with his quotes, as he points out, again, the ones who make it happen, that's the ones of us who can allow, when things don't happen the way we want, for us not to suffer it, but for us to use our prefrontal. When they happen the way we want, we get to excitedly be excited. And then there's also, he has the quote where, give me one moment alone, and then I'm going to let you go. And that's, thanks for stopping by, of course. You can like, share, and subscribe, and let anybody else who you know likes to be their self. You do not have to do anything, think anything, or feel anything to be complete. You are a complete life as you are, which is why everyone is perfect. But obviously, when they're delighting in themselves, they will know how to be with us. I can't find the quote. Hold on. I thought I had it, but I don't. It was from a couple days ago, right here. He says, stress is not a natural part of life. Stress comes from your inability to manage your own system. Managing your own system begins with your body and connection, your two sides of the brain, so the sword doesn't get too stingy or sting. The emotions are like flowers, and you work with them, and then you don't judge them. But again, the body tells you if you're doing it in a way that is with the ventral vagal state, because it's easy, it's soft, you delight here. Here is light. Here is it breathes. And no matter how many words and models and states people use, it's not the story. It's not this. It's, you feel at ease. And so even if you cry or get mad or get afraid, it's uncomfortable, but not in a way of unbearable. It's uncomfortable, but not in a way of you not being able to contain it. You contain it and you expand, therefore your window of welcome to more of emotions. And that's why you create resilience in the restorative embodiment. Those are the people who will be back here, and they don't have to do the mystic stuff at all, but they do have a woo-woo pseudoscience aid in front of them. So I'm going to continue to integrate our lovely stories, because that is where I come from. I am a mystic, a spiritual, and in the Enlightenment Soul age group, you'll know when you get there, and it will feel like this. Oh, I'm back to myself again, because pure consciousness always recognizing itself, and pure energy. And again, these are words to help you understand all this is I have the restorative embodiment, so I'm a part of the field of Akash grace It's a feeling of delight. And you can embody this. And when people talk to you about the Satori moment and they say that that's the only time you'll feel it, not really true. But again, I come from the end of the spectrum of I don't know separation from that which is delight. I am a beautiful, imperfect cockroach who will continue to be so. And that's because that's what it means to be a child who says, yep, I might make people mad, but I'm not doing it on purpose. And you do try, again, to work with each other, but that's with differentiation and self. So think of Ice Age, Manny, Diego, and Sid all together, or think of Pacha and Cusco, but all of us becoming the empowered version of ourselves, so Pacha. And that just means a differentiated self who delights in our differences. So those are the quirks that we laugh at and smile, and then we continue to have fun together and continue to grow. So personal growth happens within our households, and then obviously externally too, which is why the ones who poke at you the most are the ones who you get to spend more time with on purpose. It's called secure attachment figures, and that's where we all have them. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.